Let's talk about measurements for a little bit. There are several type of measurements, and I want to just spend time talking about three, which I think are the most important ones. The first one is pixels. So you can, if you want, you can set the size of elements to pixels. So for example, I have this H1 here, and I can set the size to, I'll say, font size to 50 pixels. Really big, right? Now, here's the catch. The problem with this is no matter the resolution of the screen is gonna be 50 pixels. So let's say that your user change the screen resolution for some reason. That font over there is gonna be as big as 50. It's not gonna change. So even though it might look cool, that could interfere with what the user is trying to do in terms of, like, I don't know, if there is some accommodations that they need to do, if they need their font to be bigger in their phone or their tablet, that will be a problem for them because you are setting an absolute value. So no matter what, it's going to be 50. Now, there's another way to do this, and we can use two types of measurements. We can use rem or you can use EM. So I'm going to talk about the rem a little bit. So rem is basically a measurement that we set based on the root element. So the root element, remember, in any HTML document is the actual HTML tag. So to use rem, we set HTML to, we're gonna say the font size for this is gonna be 10 pixels. So font size 10 pixels, just to make it easier. Okay. Oh, typo here. So now you notice right away our paragraph went way smaller, and I'm going to explain why that happened. And if you notice, our font size of our H1 is still 50. So how do we use rem? Basically, when we use rem, we have to calculate 1 rem equals 10 pixels. Okay? Now, I want this to be 50 pixels, so I have to be 5 rem. And I have the same size. So basically, 1 rem equals the font size explicitly set on the HTML root element. Now, what could be the problem? If you don't set the HTML font size at the root element, the browser is going to use whatever is default from the browser. So basically, the browser, let's say, says that their rem size is 16 pixels. That's where they're gonna make the calculation. So that's why it's important to make or declare the rem or the baseline size at the root element. That's how we use rem. Now, there's another way to do this, and we can declare, for example, we could declare another value using ems, which is relatively to a element. Okay, so let's say that I want the body element have a font size of, again, we're gonna do 10 pixels as font size. Okay, that's my bottom line. But now I'm gonna start calculating. So I want this San Joaquin Town Hall B15 PX. So if I make this calculation, I do h1, open my brackets here, and I do font size equal, I'll say 1.5 M. Now, a little smaller, I'm gonna do, instead of 1.5, I'll do 3. And you will see that if I go to this element now and I inspect the element, and I'm gonna make this all the way here, go here, click here, my font size is 3M. So here in filter, basically, you can see that the font size is 30. And now also you can see that the display is blocked, but also the font size for this element as default was 2M. So I also override that, and it normalizes 2M. So because I basically override it, now it's 3M. Now the font size is 30 pixels. See how it works? So now, what is the advantage of doing this? The advantage is that your text will be more responsive depending on the screen size. So that's why you have to keep in mind. We use RAM for that. Another trick, well, I'm going to close this a little bit. Another trick is, instead of selecting 10 pixels, you can do 100%. So what 100% means is my bottom line is, or my baseline is, whatever your browser is using as default. So if I inspect this element again, I can see that my font size went to 48. Why? So you can see here that the body element, the user agent, is 2M's, and I override it to 3M. So if I start looking here, my baseline here is basically, what I'm trying to say here is my bottom line, regardless, was 10 points. So this is a trick that you can use if you want to make your text super responsive. You can use font size 100%, and then you can start playing with either RAM or EM, and you will be able to change those measurements.